A magnetic and intense actor, Liev Schreiber has established himself as one of the most mercurial actors in Hollywood, although this hasn't always been the case. Liev's passion for acting was established early on. His father was a stage actor and director, his mother a painter. After growing up in New York surrounded by the eccentricities of divorced bohemian parents and with a desire to write for the stage and screen, initially Liev crossed the pond to the UK, where he was accepted into the prestigious Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and then Yale Drama School. His talent on stage was undeniable, and he made his US acting debut on Broadway. It didn't take long before he established himself as a versatile character actor, able to tackle everything from Shakespeare to slasher flicks. With steady work on Broadway and in New York's thriving independent film scene, Liev was cast in his first mainstream role as oddball convicted killer Cotton Weary in Wes Craven's Scream. He was so good in the role, it continued through the franchise. More small but memorable roles followed. Liev played a kidnapper in Mel Gibson's Ransom and continued his success on Broadway, effortlessly alternating between theatre and film. Seemingly always the magnetic supporting actor, Liev played opposite Robin Williams in Jacob the Liar, a film about Jewish ghetto life in World War II.
World War II was definitely a pretty substantial test for people, particularly Jews in Eastern Europe. I think it's also about how people are people, as Gertrude Stein would say. It's just that you don't stop having your foibles and your quirks and your idiosyncrasies just because your life's being threatened. And I think that's the one thing that York Becker was able to sort of get a hold of in his book that I think this film represents. The idiosyncrasy of survival is something that we've never really looked at. That sense of humor.
When Liev scored a role in the Denzel Washington-led feature The Hurricane, it seemed imminent success was on the horizon. And although he relished the experience, it was not without his blood and sweat.
As far as I'm concerned, it's still the most grueling workout that you could ever do, and the most grueling lifestyle that you could imagine, and that these guys make a living out of it and do it every night. And then you meet them, and they're such tremendously soft-spoken, generally, with an exception of a few, such soft-spoken and disciplined people, because that's what it takes to really be good at it.
Liev made Hollywood sit up and pay attention in 2004's The Manchurian Candidate, in which he starred with Meryl Streep. Acting oracle and screen goddess, Meryl Streep had nothing but the highest praise for her on-screen son.
He's a very accomplished actor. He's extremely bright. And this was a really hard role. I mean, so was mine. But his was really hard because he never knew when he was being controlled by forces other than his own self-generated will. And it was a really interesting thing to see sort of the self kind of wrestle down this other influence that came from an artificial source. And I think he does an amazing job. You can really literally see the two forces at war behind his eyes, and I think he's amazing in the part.
With praise like that, who cares that the film, though a critical success, was not a box office smash hit? Not Liev. With studio execs knocking on his door, instead of following the bright lights to rom-coms and cash, Liev returned to his roots on the stage. He won a distinguished Tony Award for his role in the theatre production of David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross. Always wanting to try his hand behind the camera, Liev decided to direct Everything is Illuminated, a novel that stirred Liev's passion for his family and film.
After my father died, I became curious about his history, I guess in the hopes that somehow it would inform my own. And I started to write a lot after his death, and I started to write in particular about the Ukraine. And then I read Jonathan Safran Foer's book, Everything is Illuminated, and I was just so moved by it. And I, more than anything, just found it really hilariously funny, and decided that that was the story that I needed to tell, that I felt really deeply connected to that.
So what did his lead actor, Elijah Wood, think of Liev's skill behind the camera?
And as a director, from an actor's perspective, he's been incredible.
When Liev accepted the role of dashing diplomat Charlie Townsend in The Painted Veil, he could not know the profound effect it would have on his life. His co-star in the drama was our own Naomi Watts, and art imitated life when the stars fell for each other. Liev's versatility and exotic good looks led him to play in the film Defiance. It was about 3 Jewish brothers in a primitive struggle for survival during the war. The shoot took place in the woods of Lithuania, and despite the freezing conditions, the actor in Liev loved every minute, even the struggles he had with his lines.
I started out by just trying to learn the lines by rote, you know, just to memorize the lines and to memorize the dialect, and it was just too confusing when I would try to rehearse the scene with one of the other actors. I had no idea what they were saying. So you sort of have to try to begin to learn the language as much as you can in the course of a 3-month shoot. But it was actually kind of fun. It was really fun, especially because so many Lithuanians speak Russian. I had a lot of help.
No doubt the fight scenes, stunts and wielding a machine gun proved to execs that Liev was ready to play Hugh Jackman's nemesis in X-Men Origins Wolverine. He played the role of Sabretooth. So what attracted him to the part?
There was something about calling the character Sabretooth that sparked my imagination about how we could use some of the elements of a big game cat in developing and expressing his power. And the stunt guys came up with a real interesting way of running on all fours that it felt very powerful and allowed him to scale buildings and take people out with a tremendous amount of force.
From the epitome of macho to the deftly effeminate, Liev proved he can play any role, as he did in Ang Lee's Taking Woodstock, in which he played a transvestite war veteran / security guard. In a role any other actor may have made a careless caricature, Liev brought Vilma to life.
I thought that it was good that Vilma embodies some of the contradictions of sexuality. In other words, she's very big. She's, 6'3", 220 pounds, and is a relatively muscular person, has these tattoos from the war, and yet chooses to live in this incredibly effeminate way. So those were the kind of guidelines for me in terms of how to develop the character and how to pick wardrobe and think about the look. All of the contradictions were really the most interesting part for me.
And how did he feel about his wardrobe?
There is always the concern that you might not look good in a dress. Certainly I've had that one. But no, I have no real concerns over playing a man in a dress. Done it before. It's old hat now.
Liev proved he could also be the leading man opposite Angelina Jolie for 2010's Salt, a contemporary espionage thriller. Ironically, the film which was to seal his prowess as a leading man, he took just for fun.
It was just a really fun ride.
So remember that name, Liev Schreiber. He's not just the partner of Naomi Watts. He's a classically trained actor, is respected by the cream of the acting world, is a director in his own right, and now is a leading man in Hollywood. And with a stack of films set for imminent release, he's an actor that brings to mind his contemporaries, like Daniel Day-Lewis and Al Pacino. And I can't wait to see what he has in store for us next. Stay tuned to Star Picks for all of the movies you know and the actors you love. Broadcast in glorious high definition with 5.1 surround sound where available. For more of the best in entertainment news, check out your Movie Network channels. It's all together better, on screen and at mnc.tv.